Good morning. Please make your way to your seats. We will begin in 5 minutes, or we will begin the program in 5 minutes. Thank you.
What's that? Okay, let me make sure I know what pointed to. Where the big arrow says. Hey, Maritza.
Hello. Thank you. Oh, yeah, yeah. We're ready. Okay.
I guess. All right. Hello, and thank you for being here. If you'll all take your seats and please silence your cell phone, we are about to begin the program.
Okay, sure. Yeah, yeah. Okay, sounds good.
Oh, I guess we'll start. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Metro's annual State of the Agency report. We want to take this moment to congratulate Metro's new Chief Communications Officer, Yvette Rapose, who was recently promoted into this key position that is part of the agency's senior leadership team. Yvette has been with Metro for nearly 20 years and previously served as Deputy Executive Officer for Community Relations, where she oversaw community and stakeholder involvement, among other duties. As part of her job, Yvette was the lead architect for outreach on the 405 freeway Carmageddon effort. She was also an instrumental part of the communications effort in support of Measure M, which was overwhelmingly approved by LA County voters in 2016. Prior to joining Metro, Yvette was an LA City Council legislative deputy and worked as a community builder fellow for the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development in the late 1990s. Please give a warm welcome to Metro's Chief Communications Officer, Ms. Yvette Rapose.
Good morning. Welcome to Metro's second annual State of the Agency breakfast. We are pleased you could be here to help us take a look back at an amazing year and also look forward to an amazing coming year. Special welcome to our board members, Mayor Butts, Board Chair Kuehl, Mike Bonin, Jackie DuPont Walker, and Janice Hahn. This morning begins a passing of the torch. As of July 1, Metro's current first vice chair, Mayor James Butts, will become the new board chair. We'll hear him speak about his goals for the coming year in a moment. And our current board chair, Sheila Kuehl, who will be known as past board chair Kuehl. So much has been accomplished under board chair Kuehl's leadership. We will be forever grateful for her service to the agency and to the County of Los Angeles. In a moment, we'll hear her thoughts and reflections on the past year. And a little later, we'll have students from Metro's Transportation Career Academy program, known as TEAC Today's State of the Agency Report. I'd like to introduce our first speaker, Metro's board chair, the Honorable LA County Supervisor, Sheila Kuehl.
Thank you. We were joined by another board member. You might have seen him come in because he knows how to make an entrance, Eric Garcetti. Welcome, welcome. Thank you so much. I just had cataract surgery. I'm happy to say I can now see you all very clearly, so don't misbehave while I'm talking or fall asleep. It's really a pleasure to be here. It's a pleasure to have served as the chair of this board, and it's an even greater pleasure when I'm called past chair. Any of you who have been the mayor, you know, if you have a rotating mayor in your city and everybody goes, oh, what an honor, and you go, but what an honor to be immediate past mayor, you know, so much easier. But today, it's my opportunity to thank all of you for the amazing work that's been done this year. And I really want to start out thanking the best manager, don't tell my CEO at the county I said this, the best manager I've ever met, our CEO, Phil Washington, for his leadership. When Eric went to recruit him and gave us 3 candidates, there were 2 that we wondered, why the heck are they in the mix? And then there was Phil. So it was like Eric said, I want to make absolutely certain, you know, that you hire this wonderful man, and we did. And it's made all the difference in the agency. I'm sure that every one of you has some project or projects especially meaningful to you from this last year. So I just want to share my 2018-2019 sort of Metro top 10 list. And I think I'll do it like the countdown, you know, our 10 favorite Beatles songs, Beyonce, John Legend, Fiona, you know, whatever, starting with number 10. So, number 10, we asked our riders for feedback this year again and again. Riders are really at the heart of what Metro is all about, and we made clear in many, many ways this year that we want to get our riders' ideas about how to improve our services. And the feedback that we are receiving from them informs our efforts to completely reimagine our bus system. It's been 25 years since our last major bus network overhaul. 75% of our customers are riders on our buses. So how do we make sure that our bus routes and our service are relevant for the next generation of riders? Our Next Gen study will help us answer that question. How do we integrate new transportation options like Uber and Lyft and bike share and electric scooters, ubiquitous and here to stay? How do we make sure that we're planning for our diverse populations of users? Because many of the studies have shown that different groups of riders use our buses and trains in different ways. So we're deeply engaged in these important questions and engaging our riders to help us answer them. Number 9, for our drivers, also an extremely important population for us, we made express lanes easier to use, including a pay-as-you-use payment option. We want to make it easier for people sitting in traffic to say, hey, I want to be in that lane, and move over to the express lane without having to be a regular user, if that is an option that they need. Number 8, for our train and our bus riders, we launched a partnership with VIA to test the viability of using on-demand technology to connect people to our transit system from wherever they are. So far, VIA has surpassed target key performance indicators for trip wait times, which means when you surpass a goal for a trip wait time, it's less, which doesn't sound right, but that's what we mean. And also for rider feedback ratings. We hope that they would be positive, and they're even more positive. We needed improved first mile, last mile connections. So the VIA service will complement the new transit service that will come out of the Next Gen study. Number 7, for our visually impaired and blind riders, we've launched a trial to a navigation assistance software program. Using an internationally recognized prototype, Metro now provides audio instructions and prompts via smartphone to our visually impaired and blind customers who must navigate our transit facilities. It was really, really a challenge for them. And this, from the feedback we're receiving early on, is really helping. Number 6, hablamos español, as well as 8 other languages. We're developing new multilingual comment forms to assist those with limited English proficiency. Whether you speak Chinese, Russian, Thai, Armenian, other languages, we still want to know what you think. And we're trying to make it easier and easier to get that feedback and not exclude any group that will be important to our feedback system. Number 5, the long-awaited Crenshaw line. Many of you don't know, but I went to Dorsey High. Crenshaw was my home area. Went to Audubon as well. Anybody here go to Audubon or Dorsey? Really? Well, we have to start expanding, Phil. Anyway, the long-awaited Crenshaw line is well underway with hundreds of millions of dollars of support from the federal government. This line is going to bring new mobility options to residents in South LA and congestion relief to the whole of LA County. Number 4, Metro is kind of like a supercharged mole burrowing underground. 5 years after breaking ground, Metro has now completed the excavation of the future Wilshire-La Brea and Wilshire-Fairfax station sites, and it's only 20 feet away, it could be 19 by now, from reaching the bottom of the final station at Wilshire and La Cienega. Our 2 new tunnel boring machines for Purple Line Phase 2 have new names. More than 2,500 votes were cast, and our boring machines were named Harriet and Ruth. Do we know for whom they might have been named? Harriet Tubman, and Ruth? Yes, Ruth Bader Ginsburg. My God, who would think a woman so old? It's kind of like Betty White. You know, you're coming into your own at this age. Everybody in my office has like a little desk bobblehead of her or, you know, some saying of hers. It's just amazing. So now, the ultimate honor for a Supreme Court justice. She probably would really like that. I mean, for Harriet Tubman, think about it. It was the Underground Railroad. How appropriate is that? And Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, not necessarily having done her work underground, but so much work on social justice, so much leadership in gender equality. And of course, these are some of the goals that we have here at Metro as well. But we didn't choose the names. These were voted on, and we're very, very pleased. Finally, we recently awarded 2 contracts for Purple Line Section 3, which will take us all the way to the VA in Westwood. This is a wonderful completion, we hope. So when they take my keys away, not only will I be able to get downtown. Now, I didn't have kids, so that was on purpose, so no one would take my keys away. Because I drive a 64 red Porsche convertible. Who would want to stop that? But anyway, when they take my keys away, I'll still be able to get to UCLA too. Metro utilized a unique bidding strategy to accelerate procurement for Section 3 and speed up the delivery because some of our venues for the Olympics will be at UCLA, and that was a very important target for us as well. Number 3, we are taking the possibility of congestion pricing seriously, but we are doing it also carefully. So we approved our first feasibility study. We're really looking at the way people travel and trying to get them to understand the benefit to them of transformation of the way they travel. Possibilities are endless, the benefits profound, including cleaner air, less congestion, more transit options, and potentially free or reduced transit fares. Okay, because a person's reach should exceed his or her grasp, or what's a heaven for. I'm sure Robert Browning's turning over in his grave because for him it was all him and him. But we're modern. So number 2, with all the customer information we gathered, we developed a new line identification system so that whether you take Metro every day or you're simply a totally lost and bewildered tourist from out of town, out of country, off-world, for those of you that have seen Men in Black, and speak no English, you can still get where you're going. And number 1, this of course is dearest to my heart, and that's why it's number 1 for me, but you can all choose your favorite. Last but not least, we have more women working on Metro construction projects than ever before. It's still a minuscule percentage, okay? But if you double 1% and get to 2%, that's 100% more. So that's a direct result of Metro's project labor agreement and construction careers policy. Last month, we hosted more than 100 women at Women Build Metro LA, a pre-apprenticeship readiness fair. And earlier this year, we hosted the first ever Girls Summit to encourage girls in grades 7 through 12 to understand that trains are not just for boys to play with. I shouldn't say play with, I mean construct and run. But it is, if you can see it, you can be it. And that was really part of what we were aiming for. So thank you all. It is an extraordinary honor to chair the Metro Board. It opens so many possibilities in your own ideas. And this is an extraordinary transportation system. It encourages us to think big. It encourages us to dream big. It encourages us to build big. And also the responsibility of it is kind of like, can we get this done? Let's get this done right, but let's get this done. So to the incoming chair, I'd like to say congratulations and condolences, which is what we always say to a chair. And I would say, finally, you are surrounded by the most dedicated and capable people I've ever seen. So to all of you, thank you very much for your partnership, for your support, for being here this morning, and for the wonderful year you've given me at the helm of Metro. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Kuehl. Now it is my pleasure to introduce our visionary CEO, Philip A. Washington. Phil has been a champion of public transit, a tireless advocate for the Los Angeles County region, a spirited warrior of equity and inclusion, and a friend and mentor to many of us at Metro. He is someone who Mayor Garcetti called the leading transit executive, not just in America, but in the world. Please welcome to the podium, Phil Washington.
Well, thank you so much, Yvette. Let me acknowledge the leadership and dedication of Supervisor and outgoing Board Chair Sheila Kuehl and her team, Nicole, Madeline, and Timothy. Give them a hand, please. I think that I love the examples that Supervisor Kuehl uses when she talks about equity. She didn't do that today, but it's very, very profound, and we are on a path, and our board approved the equity platform, and I just want to mention that the next time she speaks, maybe she'll talk about that at the last board meeting that she'll be in next week. I think that is so profound. We look forward to another year of visionary leadership and dedication from our incoming chair, Mayor James Butts, who we'll hear from in a few minutes. I do want to acknowledge, before I get into my talk, we just started 250 young people, juniors and seniors, in our internship program just this week. Just this week. And some of them are here to my right here. So when you see these young people right here, please acknowledge them. They're from various schools around the county, so please acknowledge them. The state of the agency is stronger than ever. We've taken a great leap forward over the past year in becoming what I call the Transportation Center of Excellence. We are at the beginning of the largest transportation infrastructure expansion in North America. No other region even comes close to what we're doing. And so when we talk about the Transportation Center of Excellence, we're talking about delivering as many projects as we can by 2028 for the Olympics and the Paralympics Games, so that not only people from around the world can enjoy and use these facilities, but so LA County residents can enjoy them as soon as possible as well. And so it's important to understand our goals is not just to build things, but we have bigger aspirations, and those bigger aspirations are really about transforming communities and even reimagining this county. We presented a presentation to our board a few months ago talking about reimagining the entire county, mobility, transportation. We know that they are essential to economic growth and prosperity of the region. We want everyone in LA County to have safe, efficient, reliable access to economic opportunities wherever those opportunities are. It's been 12 months since the board adopted our Vision 2028. That is our 10-year strategic plan. And let me just give today just a brief progress report and then outline some of the priorities for the upcoming fiscal year. Our board adopted that Metro Vision 2028 plan last year, and if I try to talk about everything in that plan, I'll be here all day, but it comes down to a few basic goals: providing high-quality mobility options that create outstanding trip experiences for all, enhancing communities and lives by improving mobility for all, collaborating and leading to transform the LA County, and that also means stepping into what I call leadership voids as well, and being accountable and trustworthy, and being a good steward of the taxpayer dollars. And you know, we are a long way into accomplishing those goals. We talk about the new blue. The chair just kind of talked about those. This is the improvements on the project on our oldest line in the system. We've finished the southern portion of that line, and the northern segment is underway. We'll be reopening the entire line and the new Rosa Parks Willowbrook Station, and hopefully you caught that. I know that will be a great day later on this year. The chair mentioned, the outgoing chair mentioned the Crenshaw LAX line. We've completed the new southwest yard for the Crenshaw LAX line, and we are beginning dynamic and integrated testing on the project soon. The line is set to be open next year. We're about 92% complete with that line. The regional connector, now about almost 60% complete, is scheduled for construction completion by 2022. We're excited about that. The chair talked about the Purple Line extension. That halfway point event a couple of weeks ago on a Sunday were fantastic. Many of you were out there. And that section 1 is between Koreatown and Beverly Hills. Work continues on section 2 to Century City. And we've made progress finalizing our full funding grant agreement for section 3 as well. Some of the Orange Line improvements, we broke ground on the Orange Line improvements project in the past year. We're planning the work necessary to add railroad-styled gates and 2 new bridges. It's exciting because that line will speed up the travel time. That work will speed up the travel time by about 20% and make the line even safer. I can go on and on, upgrading and expanding the system. We're following through on our promise to expand the system, and we have some dozen projects in the planning process too. So while we are actively managing about between $18 and $20 billion in construction right now, we have at least a dozen projects that are in the planning phase that are moving through planning towards design and construction. So we're happy about that. We're thinking, though, beyond just bus and rail to the future. As we look at innovation, we've launched a Mobility on Demand. We have launched our micro-transit service. We'll do that in early 2020. We're working with a private firm that wants to build an aerial tram to Dodger Stadium. And I got to think that aerial tram, it's very exciting, but when we get that up and running, the Dodgers must win the World Series then. They've got to win. We are progressing with our build-out of Metro State of Good Repair as we set a condition-based asset program. So not only are we building, but we are being responsible in taking care of what we build. And so that becomes very, very important. So we do not end up like many of the legacy systems in the Northeast and around the world that built these great shiny objects but did not take care of them. We are doing just the opposite, and we're taking care of our system. Safety and security. We've talked about safety and security. We've seen a 7% decrease in serious crimes on the system from 2017 to 2018. We have doubled the police presence on the system within the last 24 months. And even though we have doubled that police presence, we've made sure to not give the impression that we have a police state on our system, and I think that is very, very important. We're fighting sexual harassment on our system by expanding our It's Off Limits campaign to empower our community to take action against sexual harassment. We have trained all of our operators on human trafficking. We have revamped our Transit Watch hotline. It continues to be a source for helping to improve 24/7 multilingual counseling for transit customers. Our homeless outreach teams, we've added 6 more homeless outreach teams. We've increased the number from 2 to 8, and we've placed over 88 homeless persons into permanent housing. We are enhancing our customer experience. We rolled out the first wave of in-touch information access on our Blue Line, and those screens provide customers with arrival time, with interactive systems map, service advisories, and much more. We are reimagining our bus service with our next-gen bus study. We talked about the priorities for the coming year. We've released that bus study, of new routes. We'll release it towards the end of this year, and we hope to implement those changes in summer 2020. And this is a huge effort. The customer experience plan, we'll release our customer experience plan, and it's the start of a continuous effort to improve the customer experience on the system. Our chair talked about creating opportunities for women and girls. One quick example, and I give this example quite often, we've hired 30 women as service attendants in the last year by revamping and redoing the job description that we had for that position that required the lifting of 80 pounds. We got rid of that old arcane job description requirement, and as soon as we did that, we ended up hiring 30 women right off the bat that will lead to the maintenance pathway in our system, and so we're very, very proud of doing that. Congestion relief, our chair just talked about that. We're in a feasibility study, not just for congestion relief, but also looking at the Ubers and Lyfts of the world, or the TNC feasibility study. Our chair talked about the possibility of the revenue from congestion pricing leading to the consideration of free transit. This is huge, and I think it will transform and reimagine this entire county if we can offer free transit for everyone. And not only will that impact low-income households when you take away the expense of transportation. We know the two biggest expenses in families are transportation and housing. If we can make or consider free transit for everyone in this county, I've got to think that it will impact homelessness. I've got to think it will impact affordability of housing. I've got to think that it will change the dynamic of families, especially low-income families, not to mention, not to mention reducing our carbon footprint. And so I think this nails a couple of two birds with one stone if we can offer free transit and really make affordable housing with families that live on the edge. Transit-oriented communities, our equity framework, we've talked a little bit about that, and that is a wonderful thing. And then finally, this idea of leaving an infrastructure inheritance for our kids and grandkids. We are not just building rail lines, we're changing lives. We will break ground on our transportation school, grades 9 to 12, next spring. We will make sure, and when it's all said and done, that school will have 450 kids in it, and they will graduate. They will be our future workforce in the transportation infrastructure space. And we see the day, and we envision the day when people from all over this country will say, if you want good transportation infrastructure workforce, you will look to LA County. So thank you so much for being here. I'm honored to have worked with our outgoing chair, Sheila Kuehl, and her team. I look forward to working with our incoming chair, Mayor James Butts, and his team as well. Let me turn it back over to Ms. Yvette, and we'll get ready to hear from the incoming board chair. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Phil. Next up is the incoming chair of Metro's Board of Directors, who will take the helm on July 1st, the mayor of the city of Inglewood, Mr. James Butts. Mayor Butts has 45 years of public safety and municipal government experience. He has held the rank of general manager or assistant general manager of 4 large and complex municipal organizations over the past 32 years. He served 19 years in the Inglewood Police Department, rising to the rank of deputy chief, 15 years as the chief of police for the city of Santa Monica, and 5 years as an assistant general manager for the Los Angeles World Airports in charge of public safety and counterterrorism. Please give a warm welcome to Metro's incoming board chair, James T. Butts.
I tell you, my mother would have loved that introduction, and my father would have laughed. First of all, I'm so honored to follow Chair Kuehl, work with some great people, Director Bonin, Director DuPont Walker, Director Hahn, who I've known since her father was on the Board of Supervisors. And most of all, I'm so honored to work with Phil Washington and the great group of people that work and serve Metro. It's difficult to come right now because I'm the third speaker and you've been sitting there for 20 minutes listening to people, okay? And so before I give you my remarks, which I'm required to do, let me tell you about what I'm about. What makes an organization great is not the policymakers, although sometimes we think we do. What makes an organization great are the employees, the supervisors, our police officers, the people that deliver service, that take policy and turn it into an operational reality. And so then what is my job, okay? Well, Chair Kuehl told you about what we've done. Phil Washington told us about what we're doing, and I'm supposed to tell you what we're going to do. My belief that the chair of a board, and this is the most you'll ever hear me talking this year, the chair of a board is like an orchestra conductor. And the conductor doesn't make the music. The conductor gets everybody on the same page. As an example, in Inglewood, we've obtained 3 sports franchises, reopened the Forum. It's the #1 concert venue in the state of California. The Girl Scouts are migrating from Marina Del Rey. Oh, they have migrated from Marina Del Rey, their regional headquarters, to Inglewood. The NFL networks are leaving Culver City to come here next year. We'll have a Super Bowl and NCAA Championship Bowl game. FIFA World Cup scheduled for 2026, Olympics in 2028. And you know how long our council meetings are? Average council meeting in Inglewood is 30 minutes. A long council meeting is a public hearing and it's 45 minutes. We passed rent control last week with 60 speakers in 2 hours and 45 minutes. The doing is not in a bunch of talking. The doing is in creating an environment where the people that deliver the product feel like they're respected, they're valued, and they are part of an organization and purpose that is much larger than themselves and is extremely worthwhile. And that's what I hope to continue to perpetuate, that environment in this organization. Jesse Owens once said, "We all have dreams, but in order to make dreams come into reality, it takes an awful lot of determination, dedication, self-discipline, and respect." This board will continue to follow Jesse's message and make something special happen in LA County. We'll accomplish this by putting together our most talented minds, creating strong public-private partnerships, and increasing our shared sense of urgency at Metro. A sense of urgency is so important because, you know, when that check comes every other week, it gets easy to become complacent unless you have people that are invested in an outcome. If you don't have leaders that model a sense of urgency, that what we're doing is important and it needs to be done and done right now. Maximum results come only with accountability, responsiveness, and fiscal discipline. As chair, I have 3 simple goals that I hope will help lead the way for the successful development of Metro's Transportation Championship run during the next year. First goal, play within the lines. We need to be determined to deliver projects on or before schedule within reasonable board-adopted policies and budgets. A champion prepares and trains for challenges. and this means planning for the future and setting realistic expectations. There are times when this board hasn't done that. It wasn't during the Chair Kuhl's reign, of course, but the thing in years past, that didn't always happen. Addressing traffic congestion, sustainability, and equity in our region are among our biggest challenges. We have the resources and a plan to meet these challenges with Measure M funding and our board-adopted 28 by 28 initiative. A champion sets realistic goals related to each challenge, and that is why the board chose to focus on 4 key pillar projects to accelerate the 28 by 28 plan. One of my top goals during the chairmanship is to advance towards completing the 20 fully funded projects and the 4 additional major projects the board adopted a couple of months ago to be operational before the 2028 Olympic Games. To be accountable to our taxpayers and establish a realistic scope, schedules, and budgets for these 24 key initiatives and the rest of our capital projects, this board must provide the appropriate tools and oversight for the delivery of projects. The board needs to understand and be willing to directly address future service and project constraints that are created before we approve cost increases, scope increases, or value engineering proposals during the project design and construction. We must be realistic about what we can do and by when. We must hold ourselves, the board, first and foremost, accountable and be transparent about what we will be able to accomplish within the staffing, funding, and process constraints in which Metro's projects are developed and delivered. And we must also make sure our Metro departments are organized effectively and report through our CEO to the appropriate committees, aligning policy decisions to the respective core committees. During my chairmanship, I believe that the board needs to be laser focused on the programs, projects, and strategies we will include in the LRTP update and make realistic funding assumptions for both short and long term that incorporate changes in current project costs and scopes. Without an updated baseline, we cannot accurately project the resources that will be available for the new mobility and accessibility challenges. I believe the LRTP should refine and continue its 2 lists of projects and programs, one constrained by current revenue projections, and a second aspirational list that could be added if new funding sources become available. Goal 2, innovate the game plan. Embrace new technology solutions that are cost-effective and can bring wins sooner. Sense of urgency, making things happen sooner than expected. To achieve our economic and social equity goals, we must recognize new opportunities and find new solutions that can bring significant cost savings and take less time to implement. Traditional solutions like heavy rail and light rail may work in urban areas, but sometimes they take too long and cost too much to be of practical use in suburban and rural areas where neighborhoods and goods movement are highly valued. For our non-urban constituents, Metro needs to embrace a broader range of mobility and accessibility strategies across our congested metropolis. Metro is just beginning to explore mobility and accessibility options beyond our rails and freeways. That is why during this year, I'll be focusing on the 405 Sepulveda Pass corridor to explore new transit technology tech concepts for fast and cost-effective solutions. In Inglewood, we're developing a sports entertainment capital of the Western United States. And one of the things that we need to do, we need to solve our last mile solution to get people from the Green Line into the entertainment district. We want that to be an overhead people mover of some type. And we hope that that will spur interest in completing that connection between the valley and the airport. And to be done faster, I don't think subway is the way to do it. Similarly, to serve the entire county, Metro needs to address electronic and neighborhood scale infrastructure investments like broadband and microtransit programs and goods movement strategies related to the growth of online retail. I would like the board to become a global leader in the use of data to improve mobility and access, whether through more efficient and effective use of our streets, microtransit in our communities, improved goods movement, and the digital highways that connect our neighborhoods to the world. These promising public-private strategies must be properly represented in Metro's upcoming long-range transportation plan. Third, build the winning team. Engaging all of our regional partners is the winning strategy. Measure M was successful because of all our sub-region cities across LA County were engaged and participated in the decision-making process. This is a true formula of success, and I plan to meet with and understand all of the Council of Governments' transportation priorities in my first few months as chair. As one of the 4 corridor representatives, I will be listening to each sub-region's priorities and look for better ways to integrate the COGS and sub-regional perspectives into Metro's policies and actions. Mobility and accessibility is a team sport. Once we have a game plan, we need to use our opportunities to strengthen partnerships. We acknowledge Metro's championship team needs key private sector and public sector players at the local, regional, state, and federal level to implement our ambitious plans. Each one of these players brings talent, resources, and perspectives to our game plan. Without a shared understanding, commitment to the team, we cannot possibly be ready to welcome the world to Los Angeles in 2028. Finally, Jesse Owens again once said, to be a gold medal winner, one needs to be determined, dedicated, and realistic. I look forward to working with the board and staff to accomplish the 3 goals in the next year, and I promise you this is the most you'll ever hear me talk in the next year. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor, for those remarks, and we look forward to working with you and your staff in support of your goals and objectives for the coming year. Students from the Transportation Career Academy program will now be joining us on stage to ask Phil, Board Chair Kuehl, and incoming Chair Butts a few questions about Metro and mobility in our county. TCAP provides summer internship opportunities to high school students who are transit dependent, reside in LA County, and live in close proximity to Metro Rail. At this time, I'd like to call up Latane Ene and Evelyn Avalos, our TCAP students, for the question and answer session. Latane is currently a student at Cerritos High School, where he's going to be a senior. This is his 2nd year in the TCAP program. Latane is from Santa Fe Springs, California. Evelyn has recently graduated from iPoly High School. She will be attending UCLA in the fall. This is her 1st year in the TCAP program, and she is from Boyle Heights, California. I hear they're going to ask tough questions. So Phil, James, Sheila, be ready. Welcome, Latana and Evelyn. Let's give a big applause to our TCAP students and our distinguished panel.
Hello, good morning, everyone. So I have some questions. My first one will be for Chair Kuehl. I'm sorry.
I think cool is pretty cool.
All right. So I would like to know, what did you learn most about Metro after serving as chair for the past year?
The first thing I learned is that you need to acknowledge your staff, which I didn't do this morning. And the reason I didn't do it is because they write my remarks, and they do not praise themselves in my remarks. So I want to thank Nicole England, Madeline Moore, and Timothy Lipman, and I want you to thank them too. Metro has an extraordinary staff, and that's why I talk about staff. An extraordinary group of so many people. You really don't focus on the breadth of the work being done and the talent of all the people doing it until you're chair. Being a member of a group, you know, you keep up with the agenda, you study for the meeting, et cetera, et cetera. But being chair really makes you focus more. the final thing is the great ambition and realistic reach of Metro. How, with collaboration, with dialogue, with our local leaders, county leaders, thought leaders, how much more we are getting done here in Los Angeles County than I see in so many other places. And I have come to appreciate even more how really varied and talented the people of Metro are.
Thank you.
All right, good morning, everyone. My first question goes out to Mayor Butts. As the incoming board chair, what is your top priority for the agency over the next year?
My top priority is actually to help change the concept of mass transit as a nice thing, esoteric concept, and as something that people see as extremely valuable. And that's why, as I mentioned, that we have such an opportunity with the entertainment district coming online, that if we can get a viable mass transit option from the Green Line to the entertainment district, it's about 1.5 miles away, that this will give people a reason to get on the train and then say, hey, this is pretty neat. This is something I could do all the time. And so I believe we have a real opportunity in this term to change the concept from mass transit being an esoteric concept to a viable, enjoyable necessity.
The next question is for Mr. Washington. Metro is working to develop a microtransit system through its microtransit pilot project. What is the advantage of microtransit to traditional forms of public and private transportation?
It was primarily that first last mile that we are trying to address. The idea of microtransit, the idea of curb to curb, and might I say Uber, Lyft-like services becomes very, very important. We are going to embark on this really unique type of service sometime next year. And the opportunity to address this first last mile issue with curb-to-curb service is, I think it'll really revolutionize how we think about public transit. And what we're really trying to do is make sure people have a reliable form of transit and will be comfortable in leaving their car behind. And so this idea of microtransit is very, very real. We're going to launch this thing. We're excited about it. We're using our own drivers, bus operators to operate this microtransit. We see huge opportunities with that.
Thank you.
Okay, my next question is for Chair Kuehl. After your time as chair of Metro's board, what would you say is your greatest accomplishment?
Well, I think you probably already know no one person has a greatest accomplishment. I mean, Jim actually talked about kind of what a chair does, which is to try to bring everybody together and make everybody see that working together, things make sense. But I would say in terms of the things that we've accomplished this year, I think my two favorite are the Next Gen study, because it's big. To have people say you have to rethink the whole sort of bus route and network system after so long. And the second thing, I mean, we talked equity, equity, equity. Notice that we're using the term equity and not equality, because if you treat everybody the same, you don't take into account that they don't start out at the same at the, at the line beginning the race. But it's not just about gender equity, though I emphasize that a lot. I mean, the women and girls initiatives that we've taken are extraordinary and important. But I want you to look at the diversity, and I'll say the racial diversity and the ethnic diversity in this agency is changing and changing and changing and looking more and more and more like LA every month. And that is so important. And we're not talking about just incoming, though I look at the variety and young people who are interested in us and working with us. But I mean, Phil just replaced half his leadership team for good reasons. It's kind of like, oh, Stephanie, we think you should go run Metrolink. Bye-bye. You know, that's a good thing, but leaves a major hole. So I think equity and the Next Gen study, I would say, are two things I'm most proud of in the past year.
Thank you.
The next question is for Mayor Butts. Safety is a big concern among riders of public transit. Metro has made a 5-year investment to bolster police presence on trains and buses. Will this help to change the public's attitude about using public transit?
You know, that's a pretty complex question because the first thing that matters is the behavior of the riders. It's society's orientation, how we will behave. And something that has an impact on that is opportunities that people have in their personal lives to succeed personally, feel good about themselves, take care of their families. You know, Inglewood used to be known as a very violent place. People thought about Inglewood, they thought about gangs and crime and poverty. They did. They don't think that way anymore, and it's a reality. We've had 8 consecutive years of the lowest crime rate in history, but you know what's happened recently? Our unemployment rate has fallen in the last 7 years from 17.5% to 5.2%. Now, that work site for the stadium, 3,000 people go to work there every day. 1,200 are Inglewood residents. In 3 years of construction, there's not been one crime in that work site, not one. In the surrounding area, crime has plummeted. So we have a societal issue first and foremost to look at what we're doing in society so that people can exercise their right to self-determination. Now, after that, when you talk about the system and policing, which is something I know a little bit about, Metro has a low reported crime rate for the size of the system. But the reality is it's that same thing. If a tree falls in the forest and there's nobody there to hear it, does it make a sound? And so if there's not a certain threshold level of police presence, you won't know the magnitude of a problem that you have. So the investment that we've made in increasing police presence will pay dividends on 2 fronts. 1, their presence. 2, having law enforcement professionals there to assess the magnitude of victimization.
Thank you.
My next question is from Mr. Washington. What do you want to see from the Next Gen study, and how do you think the results from this study will impact Metro's bus service?
Yeah, the Next Gen study, Chair Kuehl talked a little bit about that a little earlier. We have not revamped the service on the street and really wiped the slate clean in terms of our bus service for the last 25 years. And so the idea of looking at our bus service that's on the street in a holistic way, and not just a route here or a route there, but looking at the entire system, understanding that there's new residential centers, there's new employment centers, and all of those things. I am really expecting to present a holistic plan to the board, considering also on-street reality, because this, on-street reality and us having both the flexibility and the ability to adjust service based on street reality makes a lot of sense to me. And so when we present this, we need to be open-minded with regard to how much service we need to put on the street. We need to be open-minded in saying that this particular route does not work, and have the intestinal fortitude to maybe stop that route or adjust that route if there's good reason to do that. And so I'm looking forward to presenting that to our board and really making our bus service reliable and effective, and finally speeding up the system. I mean, that is one of our main challenges. How do we speed up the bus system, whether that is bus-only lanes, which I know is controversial, but how do we speed up our system so people will look at our bus system and say that it's reliable and it's effective?
Thank you.
My next question is for Chair Kuehl. With the 2028 Olympics coming to Los Angeles, what steps has Metro taken to ensure we have adequate transportation options to travel to the many venues planned in support of the Games?
Well, I think some of that's been touched on. Both Bill and Jim have talked about the notion of accelerating projects. We already had 20 projects that were scheduled to be done by 2028, and they're very important to the Olympics. There are 4 additional projects that we've identified, and we adopted a kind of a responsible way to look at how things could be accelerated. What kinds of help would we need to do it? Because you can't just say, oh, I want to build this, but there's no money, but let's build it anyway, obviously. So I think adopting the sort of the formula for looking at how we might accelerate those projects was a really good thing. Secondly, just like with the Purple Line, where we referred to a sort of an innovative procurement approach, which was the tunnel boring machine is already there. How about using it a little earlier and not moving it and bringing it back, or having to find a different one? I mean, it's there. Or starting from both ends and meeting in the middle, like they did with the Transcontinental Railroad. And so I think thinking about ways to do things faster in a practical way. But the third thing is also our Office of Extraordinary Innovation. Innovation itself is kind of extraordinary, so I'm not sure what extraordinary innovation would be, like really fantastic innovation, like imagining that we can build trains in LA, for instance, which I think we might be able to do. But, you know, they help us with the P3, with the partnerships that will also help us to get to our goals of building out what we need for the Olympics. And also, they helped identify the first mile, last mile pilots like VIA that I think will also help us during the Olympics, because a lot of people aren't going to know how to get to transit. And pulling that all together in the next 10 years so that I can just do what I do with a car, which is how do I get from here to there? How long is it going to take? What's the route? You know, or staying in my house until the bus is only 10 minutes away so I don't have to, you know, stand and wait for it. A lot of different innovations through that office. And I think it's going to be very, very exciting in 2028.
Thank you.
My final question is for Mayor Butts. Both the Crenshaw LAX line and the new Inglewood Stadium for the Rams and Chargers are scheduled to open next year. How does the City of Inglewood and Metro plan to help people travel between the new train and the new stadium?
You know, that's a good question. No. Okay, I can tell you about what we have planned right now. Right now, that last mile is not done. And so we have a contract with a company that is securing overflow parking at the hotels on Century, Southwest College, lots that we have in Inglewood, and providing microtransit from those places to the games, because, you know, we're going to need surplus parking. And the good thing is, though, this is going to be done through a phone app. So if I live in the Valley, I want to go to the game, I punch in, you know, where I am. They tell you the nearest place to go park. Your parking's there. You've paid online. Seamless. So that's what we're going to have to do until we close that last mile transit option. Once we close the last mile, that's going to drastically reduce parking needs, because you're going to see tens of thousands of people that are going to choose to get straight to the venue and straight back to where their park and ride is.
Thank you.
And my final question is for Mr. Washington. LA's homelessness crisis is widely known, and public transportation is not immune. What measures does Metro take to address the homeless people who use buses and trains for shelter?
Well, I think the first thing is using a humane approach. We have established what we call C3 teams. We've got 11 teams out there that engage the homeless. We have 6 teams during the day, 5 teams at night. Those disciplines, and these are 5-person teams. Those disciplines include a nurse, a substance abuse counselor, a mental health clinician, a generalist, and a former homeless individual, and with support of a medical staff as well. And so this is a 24/7 flexible deployment, 7 days a week. It's on our entire system, and we engage the homeless. As I mentioned in my remarks, we have placed almost 100 homeless individuals in temporary or permanent housing. I think that we should realize when we talk about public transportation, and it's a different way of looking at public transportation, we are a socio-economic enabler. This is one of the reasons why I'm really pushing the idea of deeply reduced or even free transit. Because if we take away that expense, as I said in my earlier remarks, if we take away the transportation expense on families, that could make a difference in what they can afford in terms of housing. When you have a family of four, and I was talking to a member of my team earlier this week, you have a family of four, you got maybe 3 kids going to school, you're paying for all 3 of them, and it may be $100 a month. That's $300. And then you're paying for yourself for transportation, whatever, that could be $100 a month. All of a sudden you're up to $400, $500 a month for transportation. If you can take that away, and if we can agree that public transportation is a socio-economic enabler, that all of a sudden opens up opportunities for that family to maybe afford more of a house, or it may be able to make the difference between that family staying in that house or becoming homeless. And so this idea of public transportation being a socio-economic enabler is very real in my mind. And if I look out 10 years from now, 15 years from now, I think we can make a change and make a difference and step into this leadership, this sometimes leadership void of addressing the homeless, not just on our system, but countywide.
Thank you very much for your time and for your answers.
Thank you for your time.
Great job. Thank you very much to our TCAP students and our distinguished panel. We now have a few moments left in today's program to answer any questions the audience may have. We have a few Metro staff members out in the audience with microphones. So if you have a question, raise your hand and we will find you. If there are any questions from the audience? Okay, we've got one over here. Please.
We're very proud of this organization and all that you've accomplished and what you aspire to accomplish. We think that your aspirational spirit is really an important model and lesson for the Southern California community. We want to add, however, one more aspiration to your list, an aspiration that's related to the Olympic Games. It was, in fact, the aspiration that predecessors of yours adopted in 1980, which was to significantly enhance the ridership on the bus system in time for the Olympics. And they adopted several measures back then, including significant fare reductions, which generated very, very significant new ridership over a 3-year period, almost 20%. We hope that you will make increasing ridership on the bus system to 2008 levels by 2028, objective number 29 in your list of 28. And I wonder if you might comment.
Okay.
99% speech,
Jim, is that a yes?
1% question. Thank you, Danny.
We agree with you, Denny.
Any other questions? Okay. Okay, well, then I'd like to thank everyone for attending Metro's State of the Agency event, and we look forward to continuing working with you, our stakeholders, to improve mobility in the entire region. We have big things planned in the coming year. Thank you for coming.
No.